This is Heliox, where evidence meets empathy. Independent, moderated, timely, deep, gentle, clinical, global, and community conversations about things that matter. Breathe easy, we go deep and lightly surface the big ideas. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into a study that really caught my eye. It's all about the relationship between those everyday painkillers, the ones you probably have in your medicine cabinet, and the risk of developing dementia later in life, like the kind you just grab for a headache or muscle ache without a second thought.
Oh, yeah. It's a fascinating area of research for sure. We're talking about NSAIDs, or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which are some of the most commonly used medications worldwide.
Right. And the research we're looking at today, it comes from the Journal of the American Geriatric Society. They took a look at data from the Rotterdam study, which has tracked the health of thousands of people for decades. Talk about a gold mine of information. So what did they find? Did just popping an Advil every now and then increase the risk of dementia?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The study actually found that long-term use of NSAIDs, and by that we mean for more than 2 years, was associated with a decreased risk of developing dementia.
Hold on, decreased. So using these common painkillers long-term might actually be good for your brain. That's not what I expected at all.
It's definitely a surprising finding. The study also looked at shorter durations of NSAID use, like less than a month or between 1 and 2 years. And those showed a slight increase in dementia risk. However, the researchers pointed out that this increase was very small, and it might not be something to worry about clinically.
Okay, so it's not like a free pass to start taking NSAIDs every day, but it sounds like the duration of use is a really key factor here. What could even explain this difference between short-term and long-term use? Is it simply that the anti-inflammatory effects build up over time?
That's one possibility. Long-term use might lead to a more sustained reduction of chronic inflammation in the brain, which we know is implicated in dementia development. However, it could also be something more complex. There's emerging research looking at how long-term NSAID use affects the gut microbiome, which in turn could influence brain health.
So the impact of these medications, it might go way beyond just reducing inflammation in the moment. We're talking about potential long-term changes happening in the body.
Exactly. There's a lot more research to be done, but this study really highlights the interconnectedness of different systems in the body, from the brain to the gut.
Now, to make sure they're really seeing the effect of NSAIDs, the researchers controlled for other factors that could influence dementia risk, right? Like age, lifestyle, and overall health.
Yeah, they took all that into account. They looked at things like age, smoking history, alcohol consumption, other medications people were taking, and existing health conditions like diabetes and history of stroke. This helps strengthen the link between long-term NSAID use and reduced dementia risk.
Okay, so we know long-term NSAID use might be protective, but how? What's going on at the cellular level?
Well, we know that chronic inflammation in the brain is a likely culprit in dementia. And NSAIDs, they work by blocking those COX enzymes that kickstart the inflammatory process. So one theory is that by consistently reducing inflammation over the long haul, NSAIDs might be protecting the brain from damage.
So it's like they're acting as a shield for the brain, preventing that slow burn of inflammation from doing its damage.
That's a good way to put it. But to add another layer of intrigue, the study dug deeper into specific types of NSAIDs. Some are known to lower levels of amyloid in the brain, while others don't have that effect.
Okay, quick refresher. Amyloid plaques are those protein clumps that are a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease, right?
Right. And you might assume that the amyloid-lowering NSAIDs would be the ones showing the strongest protective effect against dementia.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought. So were they right?
Actually, both types of NSAIDs, those that lower amyloid and those that don't, showed a similar protective effect.
So the benefit might go beyond just reducing amyloid. There's more to this story than we initially thought.
Exactly. It suggests that NSAIDs might be acting on multiple pathways involved in brain health, not just targeting amyloid.
Now, I know we've talked about inflammation and amyloid, but what about genetics? Does our DNA play a role in all of this?
It absolutely does. The study looked at a specific gene called ApoE4, which is a well-known risk factor for Alzheimer's disease.
I've heard of that gene. So did they find that people with the ApoE4 gene didn't benefit from NSAIDs? Or that they had a higher risk of dementia despite using them?
It's not that straightforward. What they actually found is that the protective effect of NSAIDs was mainly seen in people without the ApoE4 gene.
So does this mean if you have this gene, you're just out of luck? Are there any other things people with this gene can do to potentially lower their risk?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore further when we come back. It looks like we have a lot more to unpack.
Thank you to our community, which now spans 59 countries within 394 cities in 15 languages, with auto-translated captions on YouTube and our English closed captions on all providers. Such a wide range of ages, mostly 18 and older. Thank you to those who have subscribed or followed on your podcast, provider, and Substack. You are widely outnumbered by those that have not yet subscribed. It makes a difference to independent producers like Heliox. Please consider following, subscribing, and liking. Start a discussion on the episode content. Listen to the end for the Substack address. Back to Heliox, where evidence meets empathy. All right, we're back and ready to dig deeper into this connection between NSAIDs and dementia risk. Before we jump in, I think it's important to remember that this study we're discussing, it's observational, meaning it can show us a correlation, but it doesn't definitively prove that NAs are the reason for the lower dementia risk.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's kind of like noticing that people who carry umbrellas tend to stay drier in the rain.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean the umbrella itself is causing the dryness. There could be other factors at play.
Right. Okay, so it's not a guarantee. But considering the potential benefits, how might this research even change how doctors approach prescribing NSAIDs, especially when weighing those benefits against the potential risks?
That's a crucial question, and it's likely to spark a lot of discussion, in the medical community. If further research confirms a protective effect, doctors might consider the long-term use of NSAIDs, especially for patients with a high risk of dementia and who don't carry that ApoE4 gene.
But as we mentioned earlier, NSAIDs do come with their own set of risks, right? Especially with long-term use.
Exactly. Long-term use of NSAIDs has been linked to gastrointestinal issues, kidney problems, and even cardiovascular risks in some people. So any decision about using NSAIDs long-term would need to be made on a case-by-case basis, carefully weighing those risks against the potential benefits, for sure.
So it's a very complex decision and certainly not one to make without consulting a doctor. What other research is out there? Are there other studies that kind of support these findings?
Well, there have been other observational studies that have also hinted at a potential link between long-term NSAID use and a lower risk of dementia. However, to really nail down cause and effect, we need those gold standard, randomized controlled trials.
Right. Those are the studies where people are randomly assigned to take either the drug or a placebo, so you can really isolate the effects of the drug itself.
Exactly. And those types of trials are already underway. Researchers are actively investigating whether long-term NSAID use can actually delay or prevent the onset of dementia.
So this is a very active area of research, which is exciting. Now, before the break, we were talking about the ApoE4 gene and how the protective effect of NSAIDs seemed to be strongest in people without that gene. So for those who do have the ApoE4 gene, does this research offer any insights for them?
It's important to remember that while genes play a role, they don't determine your destiny. Having the ApoE4 gene doesn't mean you're guaranteed to develop dementia. It just means you might have a higher risk.
Okay, so it's not a death sentence. But it does raise the question, are there other things people with this gene can do to potentially lower their risk?
Absolutely. Even if NSAIDs aren't as effective for people with the ApoE4 gene, there are still plenty of things they can do to promote brain health.
Like what? Give us the good stuff.
Well, a lot of the same advice applies to everyone, regardless of their genes. A healthy lifestyle is crucial. This includes things like a balanced diet, regular exercise, quality sleep, and stress management.
So those are the cornerstones of a healthy brain, no matter what your genes say. But are there any specific recommendations for people with the ApoE4 gene?
One area of focus might be managing cholesterol levels. There's some evidence that people with the ApoE4 gene might be more susceptible to the negative effects of high cholesterol in the brain.
So working with your doctor to keep those cholesterol numbers in check could be especially important for this group.
Exactly. And there's emerging research looking at personalized approaches to dementia prevention based on an individual's, genetic makeup.
So in the future, we might have tailored recommendations for people with specific genes.
That's the hope. As we learn more about how genes interact with lifestyle and environmental factors, we can develop more targeted interventions to promote brain health and reduce the risk of dementia.
This is all so fascinating. It's like we're peeking behind the curtain of the brain and getting a glimpse into how everything works.
It is. And this study, well, just one piece of the puzzle, really highlights how complex and interconnected everything is, from the role of inflammation to the influence of genes and the impact of lifestyle choices. There's so much more we're learning about how to keep our brains healthy as we age.
All right, so we've explored some fascinating connections between NSAID use, inflammation, genetics, and dementia risk. It's a lot to take in, but let's try to distill it all down to the most important takeaways. What are the key things our listeners should remember from all of this?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that this research opens up a whole new avenue of thinking about dementia prevention. It suggests that long-term use of common painkillers, something many people do already, might have a protective effect against this devastating disease.
But it's not a simple answer, though, right? We need more research to confirm these findings and understand all the nuances.
Exactly. While the study's findings are encouraging, it's crucial to remember that it was an observational study, meaning it shows us a correlation, not a direct cause and effect.
Right. And even if further research confirms a protective effect, we have to be mindful of the potential risks associated with long-term NSAID use, especially for certain individuals.
That's right. It's not a decision to make lightly. Anyone considering long-term NSAID use should definitely consult with their doctor to weigh the potential benefits and risks.
Okay, so we've got the cautious optimism covered, but what I find really intriguing is this connection between inflammation and dementia. If inflammation is indeed a key driver of this disease, what are the implications for how we approach brain health in general?
That's the exciting part. This research points to the possibility that targeting inflammation could be a powerful strategy for preventing or delaying dementia, and it goes beyond just medication. There's so many things we can do in our daily lives to reduce inflammation and support brain health.
So it's not just about popping a pill. We have some agency here.
Absolutely. It's about taking a holistic approach. Think of your brain as a garden that needs nurturing. What are the things that help a garden thrive?
Okay, I'll play along. Sunlight, good soil, water.
Exactly. Now think of those things in terms of your brain. Sunlight could be mental stimulation, like challenging yourself with new activities and learning new things. Good soil represents a healthy diet, providing your brain with the nutrients it needs to function optimally. And water could be quality sleep, allowing your brain to rest, repair, and recharge.
I love that analogy. So even if NSAIDs aren't the magic bullet, this research empowers us to take control of our brain health through lifestyle choices. What are some really concrete steps people can take today to get started?
We've touched on a few already. A Mediterranean-style diet, rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and healthy fats, is a great place to start. Regular physical activity is also crucial, not only for overall health, but also for increasing blood flow to the brain. And prioritize sleep. Aim for 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep each night to allow your brain to clear out waste products and consolidate memories.
Okay, so eat well, move your body, and sleep well. Check, check, check. Anything else?
Don't underestimate the power of stress management. Chronic stress can trigger inflammation throughout the body, including the brain. Find healthy ways to cope with stress, whether it's through meditation, yoga, spending time in nature, or connecting with loved ones.
So taking care of our mental well-being is just as important as taking care of our physical health when it comes to brain health.
Exactly. It's all connected. And finally, don't forget to keep your brain engaged and challenged. Learning new things, pursuing hobbies, and engaging in mentally stimulating activities can help build cognitive reserve, making your brain more resilient to age-related changes.
It's like building a mental muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
That's a great way to think about it. So while this research on NSAIDs and dementia is still preliminary, it offers a fascinating glimpse into the complex world of brain health. And it reminds us that we have the power to take an active role in protecting our cognitive function as we age.
Well said. It's been a truly enlightening deep dive. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. Remember, the quest for knowledge never ends. Keep those brains active, those bodies moving, and those spirits high. Until next time.
Thanks for listening today. 4 recurring narratives underlie every episode: boundary dissolution, adaptive complexity, embodied knowledge, and quantum-like uncertainty. These aren't just philosophical musings, but frameworks for understanding our modern world. We hope you continue exploring our other podcasts, responding to the content, and checking out our related articles at helioxpodcast.substack.com.